The narrative Gundam's inner frame is uniquely important because, well, a lot of it is outer frame. So how does the Scarecrow look without any of its armour?
Damn thing's like a scarecrow.
To start with, I'll show you the various states of disassembly you can have it in, and then I'll show you how I've painted it and get into the details. Starting with the least disassembled version, which still includes the chest radiator fins. I decided to still include them and show them because to me they're still kind of inner frame. You would have to paint them if you were to display it like this, of course, but to me they're still the innards. It's not like they're armour or anything, for example. Here it is stripped down a little more, no longer with the chest fins. I thought it would look a little too bare without them, but it actually looks fine, it looks good. The head is also further disassembled, and the frame of the waist is also more on show. The reason I'm showing the various states that you can have the waist in is because the armour isn't without function there. Without any armour on top, the ball joint that the armour attaches onto is just kind of exposed, and so it could just come off. It hasn't happened to me yet, but similar to the hands and the handguards, if you were to just remove the armour, it's at more risk of just falling apart. However, with the front skirts at least, you can rectify that by just putting on the deactivated frame piece. It's just in grey, so it basically matches. The back skirts are also in different states here. That's because they don't have a full inner frame. If you completely remove the white, then you also remove the piece of frame that can fold out. So I wanted to show you both. And also, I only wanted to disassemble one because they're quite a pain to take this last piece of armour off. And then finally, here it is with the core fighter also disassembled. It works a lot better than I thought. The reason I hadn't disassembled it from the beginning is I didn't think the core fighter was going to have enough inner frame. But even though it doesn't look like it would work as a core block, it actually still does. I think, surprisingly, what actually does most of the work of connecting the waist to the chest is the big peg that comes up and out from the waist. Which is good, it slightly makes it easier to just display the core fighter if you wanted, if you were willing to just have a big hole in the abdomen of your narrative Gundam. But with the core fighter inner frame still having the thruster pieces to plug into the waist and everything, I actually think it looks really good. It looks quite a lot like an IBO frame in this state, or at very least it looks reminiscent of pistons on the sides. Certainly looks a lot better than I expected. And now here it is, fully painted. Like I said I wanted to in my review, I have painted the exposed parts of the frame in a lighter colour. I think it'll look a lot better and stand out a lot more and match the anime and line art a lot more. I also painted large segments in gunmetal. This was really only just to paint the vent thruster kind of pieces that get exposed through the armour, and also some of the lines of inner frame that are exposed and poke through the armour. But in the process, the whole piece of the frame just gets painted and really looks quite good just as the frame. I also added and kept a lot of colour separation. You can see on the biceps and elbows I kept a lot of plastic unpainted so as to just add more colours involved, add more shades of grey. Not quite up to 50, but still. For the actual side elbow pieces, I was going to mask them initially, but the pieces I wanted to mask were so small and awkward and I wasn't 100% sure what I wanted to paint and leave. I just decided to leave it bare plastic and brush paint on the colour instead. I actually did this all with spray paints, and for this I tried just brush painting the spray paint, just spraying a little bit into the lid of the can and then brushing it from there. And it worked surprisingly well and easily. I might do that a lot more, so I really need to just get an airbrush at this point rather than start brush painting with spray paints at times. But it is surprisingly easy. I also did that with the silver. The only piece I sprayed silver, I believe, was the back of the knees. The piping was easy enough to mask in quite a large area, and the part I definitely knew I wanted silver. I also initially sprayed the outside kind of caps of the knees. I believe they're like the caps of magnetic coating for the joints, as they look like the magnetic coating that gets added to the RX-78-2 in the original Gundam, so I think that's just a recurring UC Gundam thing from that point on. But yeah, I initially sprayed those in silver as well, and then I forgot to mask them. So I had to just come back and brush them. And I decided to brush with the spray paint this time, even though I have just brush silver, because I always just vastly prefer the sprayed silver. It's much smoother and shinier. So I was going to mask a lot, but I decided again to just try and brush paint the spray paint, and it worked excellently. So much so that I ended up brushing lots of silver onto it, a lot more than I had originally thought of or planned, because I just had paint left over. So I ended up painting parts of the frame that will just never be seen once the armour's put on and everything. Like the piping on the shoulders, the circles on the shin ankles, and also a dot in the side of the ankles, circles on the heels, the back skirts, and maybe visible at some point the waist, where the legs connect into. I painted those pieces because they kind of matched the joint caps, so it made sense to keep them all the same colour. And then I also found a lot of pieces to paint, of course, that would stay on show, even through the armour, like the sides of the waist. Again, it's the same kind of cap looking thing. And then all the pieces I originally planned to paint, like the slight bit of silver on the biceps. My idea for that was that the biceps have these little like circles on them that look like caps or bolts or something, and then there's a little panel line piece of separation under them. So I thought it would be cool to paint the bit under them silver, like it's, I don't know, something mechanical, and then gunmetal on top, like the gunmetal is a cap for whatever mechanical or screw thing it is going through the frame. I painted around the magnetic joint pieces as well. They had just these little bits of raised detail, so I thought they would look good silver. And then I painted the pieces on the front of the thigh in silver as well, the little line. They look kind of transistor-y to me now. Well, is it transistor? I don't know, something like that. They look cool anyway, I like them as they are. And as I looked around, there actually is a lot more of them than I thought. There's one on every side of the thighs, and there's actually one in the back of the calves under the opening flap. So I painted that as well once I found it. And once I noticed them, I also painted the pistons at the front of the ankles. They're not real pistons, but they look like it, and they look cool in silver. Well, they just look cool, full stop, so I wanted to bring them out and make them more visible. Then I also painted black in the exposed kind of thruster vent pieces. I painted those in the holes, the recessed parts of them, to make them look more like holes that things would come out of, thrust would come out of. And I painted black along the sides of the calves next to the line of gunmetal that will show through, so just to contrast it better. I think that's all I did black, and I think the last colour I used was a lighter grey just to add more separation in places. Again, like all of those transistors, they are done in a light grey as well for the other part that's not silver, and then parts of the arms are highlighted in light grey just to separate things more. In the thighs, there's also another piece of light grey on the inner side of the thigh. Surrounding it is a dark grey that I used, I think, only on the thighs. I also used that dark grey in the middle of the thigh, in the most recessed part, and then I used gunmetal on the kind of tubing to either side of that. And I'm really happy with how it turned out. I think it looks a lot more how it does in the anime and line art, where the thighs are just all light grey, but the most recessed parts are dark. I think they're just shadowed in the line art, but this works just as well. Well, better even really, because it's more detailed. And I've already noticed some parts I forgot to mention, so quickfire through them. I painted gunmetal around the tubes on the back of the knees. When I was doing silver, I added some silver to the bottom of the feet. I kind of regret doing it in the flaps, but I still had silver left over, and it's sprayed into the can, so it would have gone to waste otherwise, so I just kind of went with it. But that's the only piece I regret, so not so bad. I painted the inside of the thrusters for the core fighter in silver. I wasn't at all going to do this, but again, paint left over. And during the initial spraying, it was a happy accident really, I painted the bottom of the thigh piece in silver. And then the back skirts I actually brush painted the gunmetal onto because I didn't want to disassemble the one that I hadn't, because it was annoying to do. And that brings me to the parts that I want to tell you about being annoying to disassemble. Again, the back skirts of the waist, getting that last piece of armour off is a pain. I also broke the forearm, the folding piece on one side, trying to put it back on. I should have looked at the instructions again, I think that's why I broke it. It had actually, I think, clipped in already, but I kept pushing, so it broke. So my fault. Everything else annoying was in the legs. The outer thigh armour, but it's not armour, piece goes on quite tightly, as well as, well, pretty much the whole leg goes on tightly. Each outer shin piece goes in tightly because it has a big circle that goes through the joint. And then the pieces with the magnetic coating caps are also a little bit annoying to take off, but not as much. I also fully painted the cockpit while I was at it, because I really like getting pilot figures painted and stuff when I can, just because I like the scale. That's everything, I think. The articulation range hasn't changed, so there's no need to go over any of that. The head is a little loose though, without the darker grey side vents. It kind of separates quite easily and can become loose, but you can just kind of press it again and it tightens a bit. The only thing is, I wish I had masked the internals of the joints more, because it's now, the knees especially, or really only the knees, are now a little tight, and one of them, when straightening the leg again, really doesn't want to straighten unless I force it a bit, and then it does a large click, which is quite concerning. But still, I am very happy with it. I think it's turned out great, and I'm surprised by how good just the inner frame itself looks. Both just kind of in general. I didn't think with it having the core fighter and everything that the inner frame was going to actually look and display that great, but they've done a lot more with it to make it displayable than they sometimes do, with the detail in the shoulders, like the pipe and just other detail and things. There's not a lot of just bare plastic on show, unlike some even master grade inner frames. So yes, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this, I made a review of the narrative and covered a lot of things and have a few tips for your build of it and everything, and I plan on making more videos. It looks like there's a bit of a third-party onslaught coming. So many third-party kits have just released, like the Heavy Industries, don't remember, Sentinel, and the V-Tiger Hainu, which I've been excited for so long, about 2 years if not more, because I was going to buy the resin, but I have a lot of resin kits that I've never gotten around to, and I really can't be bothered, and it was going to end up being a recast anyway, I'm sure. So when they announced that ages ago, I was very excited for it, and then it took forever. And I'm not sure what order the videos will be coming out in, but I also either have or will be reviewing the new HG Gawain that came out at the same time as the narrative. And yeah, plenty more planned, so subscribe if you're interested. And if you enjoyed the video, yeah, leave it a like, please. It really helps let me know that anybody has seen the video. Oh, and of course I'll be making a video on the narrative again once I have all the armour on and it decaled and everything, and see what it looks like fully complete. So thank you very much for watching. Until hopefully next time. Bye.